Welcome back to the My Team series, and I'm joined again today by another former winner. Joshua Bull won it just a few seasons ago, and he's here today to tell us his current draft. We're going to slap a rating on it and see how we get on. Josh, welcome to the channel. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. The first thing I want to ask you about is, when I looked at your Twitter bio, there's mathematician or miles or something in there.
Yeah.
And I sort of made the assumption you're a bit more stats heavy than maybe the eye test.
I'm very much stats heavy. Yeah. So I actually don't watch many Premier League games. So yeah, I'm not only not good on the eye test, couldn't even recognise a footballer if you put one in front of me.
But that's incredible. And was that the season that you actually won?
Yeah, I didn't actually watch any games that year until Christmas. That's just because I went to see family and they had Sky. So stick a couple on. But
that is actually insane. Like, I'm not even trying to big it up for like a YouTube video. Like, whoa, explosions, crazy. Like, it's actually insane, because a lot of people would have that argument of data versus eye test, and this is almost like proof of concept that you can do it with just data to an extent. So you maybe are into tools like this with predicted points, because obviously with the My Team tool that we're kind of showcasing today on Hub, it predicts points over the next few game weeks, and this obviously takes into account a lot of the things that maybe you would look at. What are some of the key stats that like you sort of drive your picks based off?
So in terms of like underlying stats and things, I'm a big fan of XG, which I know gets a lot of hate for some reason from a lot of people, but it's very, very useful. Yeah, I have to say I do actually really like Hub's predicted points tool. So I'll use that as a bit of a shorthand sometimes, because obviously XG isn't so great for like defenders and stuff where they're getting points from clean sheets. I'll very often kind of just have a little look in there and see what it's thinking for different players. I always take the stats with a bit of a pinch of salt. I think with it's very easy to go, oh, this player's 6.1, this player's 5.9, therefore they're better, which is technically true, but there's such a wide kind of variance around these things that, it's good to have a bit of a slightly cynical eye when you kind of look at them. I'm just setting myself up now for when this tells me that I've got a terrible team. I'll be like, well, it's...
Yeah. It's funny because like if you didn't watch a game to Christmas, but you were using data specifically, and you're saying even the data you're taking with a pinch of salt, what other influences are there on your decision then? Is it like, does ownership, does it come under the data? Probably does. Like, what other things then is it gut feel? Like, what is it if it's not just the data? Yeah,
so I should say, I do think there is a lot of value to like eye test stuff. I just don't think I know enough about football to like judge it.
Yeah.
And so I guess I was doing a lot of like reading of what everyone else is saying. People who actually know how to kick a football and who are saying, oh yeah, such and such a player is looking really good. That's something that might then put them on my radar. It's not as simple as, is everybody putting them in the template? Yes, great. Or do the stats look good? Yes, great. I think there's an element of both, and you can kind of get a feel, there's a sort of wisdom of the crowds element, where if everyone's saying, oh, actually, it looks like this person is really going to be performing well, and the stats are also telling you that the same message is there, that kind of lends a little bit more weight to that as a potential option.
And that's always the struggle with these videos and every piece of FPL content pre-season. It's that templateness and people resenting almost, oh, another video of the template. And time will tell whether your team is template or how template it is. But equally, that is probably a message that people should take. There is a reason why these players are getting picked by everyone. It's not just because, oh, it's easy and this is what it's a case of. This is potentially the optimal team based off preseason form, the data at hand, the fixtures at hand, the format, everything. And there's a reason why all the content creators and the wider FPL space are picking these players. But quite often we want to resist that and go a bit rogue. I'd be interested to see if you have any rogue picks. Don't tell me who they are, but do you have any rogue picks?
Yeah, I think I do. There's a lot of template, okay. But I think there's some people in there that definitely aren't in the majority of teams.
I like that. So a couple more questions before we get to building. The first one is, you've won FPL. What is the one tip you would give new managers this season?
Probably not the type of tip that you want to hear, but I think we can get quite obsessed with it as a game. And I know the kind of people who are watching fantasy football videos probably quite obsessed with it. And I think for those people, I can definitely say, treat it as a game, have fun, if you want to go something rogue that is going to cost you a load of points, just do it and just enjoy it. Don't let it define how your weekend goes, which is probably not useful advice for winning it, but good life advice, I think.
I think that is sound. It's kind of that balance of how you treat the game and how it affects your emotions. So I really do appreciate that advice. I think it's really sound.
I've got a useful bit of advice as well, if you want one.
Oh, we've got two. So one that's great,
bit.
Yeah. Okay, the bonus bit.
The bonus bit is, thinking about the template, and you go, oh, everyone's got the same players. It's very easy to feel like you have to go rogue in order to get an edge over everyone else. And I think people underestimate how much having your first 11 is going to vary from you to someone else. So you can have a team full of people who are all owned by 20% of the game, but the chances that anyone else owns that exact combination of 11 is going to be a much smaller player pool. So even if none of your players feel like differentials, that's still going to be more optimal than kind of going completely rogue and saying, I'm going to get in a defender from a crap team just in case they score a hat-trick and I'll get all those points. You're better off just solid picks all round. I'm really putting myself on the spot here for criticism of this team, aren't I? So.
Everyone get in the comments and criticize Josh. Hit him hard. So look, we're going to build your team. We're going to go back to front. We're going to see what you've got. We're going to generate a team rating and we're going to slap you on the leaderboard. If anyone else wants to go and find out their team rating on Hub, you don't need to sign up, but click the link in the description. It'll bring you over and you can build your team and let us know in the comments what predicted points you're getting for game week 1. All right, Josh, talk to me. Who is your starting goalkeeper?
Starting goalkeeper, I've gone for Raya.
Raya, okay.
Yeah.
Does Strakosha or anything else going on there worry you? The fixtures, talk to me.
I mean, it's not a position I've thought a lot about, to be honest. So I like a 4.5 goalkeeper. They're all a bit better value this year. So, the kind of top end of the goalies have all gotten cheaper. But I still think that money's better spent out on the field. So, yeah, I like that kind of 4.5 mark. And I think he's a good goalkeeper, as far as I can tell, in that kind of bracket. That's certainly a position where, I can see that changing. I'm not wedded to him by any means.
It is interesting because a lot of people are going for the old 4.54 and you're spending 8.5 million in your goalkeeper slots. And then there's some people going obviously for an Ederson and then obviously a 4 million, so you're spending 9.5 million. And as you say, that extra million, you're going to deploy it further up the pitch. But there is a lot of debate around is that premium goalkeeper worth it? Particularly with City, where maybe the defenders aren't as nailed. So people are going Ederson because it saves them the risk of a Diaz or Laporte, who's obviously out at the minute. It's a nailed way in to City. So I'll be interested to see how many City assets you've used and sort of how that goes as we build this team.
Yeah, for sure. I should say as well, so this is my kind of working draft. And I've actually got, I don't know if I'm allowed to tell you this at the start, but I've got 500,000 left in the bank at the minute from this draft.
Ooh,
and that's
plot twist.
That's not going to be there when I start the season. So, if I really can't find anywhere to spend it up the field, I might go up to the likes of a Pope or someone.
Maybe whenever we pop this team in, we can look at ways that you could upgrade a player based on predicted points with 500,000 and see if you want to do that. But ultimately, it's going to be your submission against all your peers on the table, so it'll be up to you.
Yeah, well, I figure let's put it in the one I've got, and I'll use it as an excuse and say, well, clearly I'm not going to start with 500,000 in the bank. I know that's
if you win this now, there'll be an asterisk. If you win this now, he was playing the long game. So right, 4 million goalkeeper. I'm assuming for the second slot. Have you put much thought in?
I have indeed. So I've not put a lot of thought in. I've got Danny Ward at the minute from Leicester. I think there's been a few rumours that he might end up being the starting goalie, which is always nice. But again, the backup keeper is not a position I'm particularly worried about. I'm not anticipating having them ever playing. So it's a bit of a toss-up.
Schmeichel off the knees potentially. Maybe they don't get a new goalkeeper in time. I seen Bernd Leno was rumoured, but I think he's almost all but confirmed to Fulham now. So maybe Ward comes in, plays a couple. I like it. Of the 4 millions, he looks like he could get some game time. A question I'd have is, with the likes of Maddison and Vardy, a renewed, well, when I say renewed, but Leicester's defence, they had a lot of injuries last season. Do you just not see in the short term maybe the Leicester triple up and on, this isn't going to affect your game?
Yeah, it's weird as well because I have a massive soft spot for Leicester when it comes to FPL, and I always seem to have a ton of Leicester assets. It's not gotten in the way of any of my drafts so far, let's put it that way. I might end up just swapping him out for someone from a team I know I'm not going to get a player, but yeah, like I say, it's not something I've lost much sleep over so far.
Who is your most template defender?
Most template defender? Well, they're all pretty niche. Are you familiar with this guy, Alexander Arnold, who plays for Liverpool?
Oh,
He's
it's really strange you should mention him. I heard something about him the other day and got a shirt of his on the wall behind me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
know
potentially he might be good.
Maybe. The numbers might suggest it. Yeah. So he is predicted to score the most points of any defender over the first 4 weeks. He is the most selected defender in the game and probably one of the most selected players in the game.
He's got to be.
I don't even need to say a time of recording, he will be. Is there anything interesting on this choice that you might want to add, or is it just the same reason as the rest of us?
I mean,
because of everything.
Probably the same reason as everyone else. I mean, 7.5 million.
Yeah.
They'd have to price him a lot more expensively before I started worrying about whether to get him in the team or not. Yeah.
What price do you think you don't take him at?
Honestly, probably something like 9 million. I'd start to be really worrying. But even then, his numbers are sort of as good as majority of midfielders and attackers, and it just feels expensive because it's expensive for a defender. But if he's getting the points to make it worth it, then why not?
Absolutely worth it. That's why everyone has him. Who is your second pick?
It's probably my next most template defender is Cancelo,
and he's pretty much the same. He's predicted to score 3.4 less points than Trent over the first 4 game weeks. But I mean those are tight margins, and he's a relatively nailed way into City with attack and output. I mean, he picks himself like Trent, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I'm a sucker for an attacking defender. I get them in. I think as an FPL asset, they're just absolutely brilliant. Every year, people are going, "Oh, is it the time for big at the back?" And I think big at the back's never gone away. It's always the place to be.
It's always here. I like it. Yeah, I love it this season. This is the first season I've felt guilt-free wanting Trent and Robbo, because in the past I've always struggled to put that much money into defence. But this year it's go and have them all, John. You're allowed to.
Yeah.
And I'm having a ball.
Wow,
I can't
why
wait.
not?
I cannot wait for the season to start and just watch these assists and goals and clean sheets rack up. But
the
jinxing us all here now, aren't they?
When Liverpool can concede in the first minute, we're all like, oh.
But the beauty of an attacking fullback is you have the out of an assist. Something can happen.
Yeah, I see the clean sheets as a bonus. I don't want defenders that I'm relying on them getting clean sheets. I want defenders who are going to get an attacking return once every kind of month. And, the clean sheet's a nice bonus, but it means you don't wreck your weekend once they concede. You're kind of always thinking there's always a chance.
Exactly. And with these 2 picks, last season, I'm pretty sure, could be wrong, Liverpool and City, did they both have 21 or 22 clean sheets each? So it's not like you'll be waiting around for a clean sheet for very long.
No,
and on top of that, I imagine they'll get you more than an attack and return per month. But who's the third pick in defence?
Well, given what we've just said, it won't surprise you to hear that Robertson's in there at the minute as well.
Here we go. I love it.
Got the pool double up.
It's optimal.
Yeah, he is. He's only come into my drafts sort of recently, last week or so. But I've liked the way it looks. He's not left since he's come back in, so that's a good sign.
The thing with this is, I'll bring up a debate here now. So everyone's going Trent and Salah. Don't tell me you have Salah, but I'm 99% sure you have Salah. So Trent and Salah and Robertson means that Liverpool's locked. Yeah, Liverpool's locked up. A lot of people are having the debate of Robertson versus Luis Diaz in midfield. Is that something that's crossed your mind, or what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously Diaz coming into the Mane position looks pretty locked, and he's 2-3 million cheaper than Mane's been in seasons, which makes him appealing. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to score a lot of points, but I think that's true of a lot of, from the big teams, you can only pick 3. You're not going to get them all. And I just think that sort of mid-price midfield option, there's so many great choices this year, which, looking at this draft, maybe I'm not going to come out with any of them, which would be interesting. But I just think there's so much competition for that spot when you can pay less money and have Robertson, who's going to score amazing points. In my mind, that's just a better use of those Liverpool spots. I remember last season I was in completely opposite boat because I was a big Jota fan, and all the rest of the template was going, no, don't get Jota. And I feel like this year it's flipped around. Everyone wants the Liverpool mids.
Yeah, be interesting to see the ownerships of Robertson versus Diaz, but I'm definitely personally a Robertson guy. I just love the tried and tested. He's done it for seasons now.
Exactly.
And he outscored Trent in the last, I don't know if it was 10 game weeks or 6 months, whatever it was. He outscored Trent over the last period of the season substantially, albeit I think he overperformed his stats, and you're obviously into your XGs and XAs. But we'll move on to the fourth pick in defence. Who have we got?
Yes, Reece James.
There he is. He's someone who I've been thinking of taking him out of my recent draft with Chelsea's woes at the back in pre-season and Spurs in game week 2 and
Yeah,
uncertainty, will they get another centre back? And I'm just kind of like, ugh, I don't know. Makes me feel a bit icky.
yeah, and there's a lot of things I want to do which might make me kind of get a cheaper defender. And in my previous drafts, that's been Robertson. I swapped him out for sort of 4.5 million, or for Zinchenko. I'd love to get in. I can very easily see myself going, actually, let's free up 1 million from James to Zinchenko, spend that further up the field. Could well be on the radar. I've also had Chilwell in there instead of James a few times. I've not really looked into, who's the best pick out of them at the minute. So he's as much a placeholder for a kind of premium defender as anything else.
My kind of, when I looked at it, is I'm thinking if I go James down to like Trippier, I like Trippier personally over Zinchenko. I don't know, I just want to see Zinchenko a bit more at Arsenal and where exactly he plays. But Trippier, I think, is like borderline main man at Newcastle. And if I can downgrade James to Trippier, I end up with 1 million in the bank, which means I can go Raya to Ederson. And I like that. I like Ederson and Trippier more than I like Raya and James personally. And that's the debate that I've been having.
Yeah.
But it's interesting seeing, like, here, you do have funds that can be freed up,
Yeah, I mean, I just love those high ceilings. Like, James has got such a high ceiling. I just think that's a really exciting thing to have in your team.
Yeah.
I can't see Trippier getting a hat-trick any point this season. Whereas, James could always come out with that. And it wouldn't, it'd be unusual, but it wouldn't be a surprise. Nobody'd be like, oh, how did that happen? Whereas I feel like, with Trippier, that's just a bit less likely.
So you think the upside's higher with James? And then it's about sort of deciding to yourself about the upside of that, upside versus the million.
Yeah, I mean, James, you're going to get a lot of 2-pointers and then the occasional 24-pointer. And I think that's a lot more fun than getting 6 points every week.
Yeah, fair. Whatever you're into, whatever makes you happy. So your fifth spot here, I'm interested to see, will they be a starter or a sub?
Do you know, that's a very good question, because I actually haven't decided yet. So it's Nico Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm kind of tempted in this draft, he's a sub, but I am kind of tempted to end up starting one of the kind of bench players. So him, potentially some people further forward that we'll get to later. I think there's potentially a lot to be gained from having like a playing 4 million defender. The last time we had that was with Lundstrom in my drafts at the start of the season, and that worked out pretty well. So yeah, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, let's see. Can Nico be this season's Lundstrom? Pressure's on. I'll ask you in midfield, who's your most template pick? And I'm going to imagine it rhymes with Schmo Schmala.
Yes, indeed. It does.
And he goes 13 mil locked. Do we need to say anything here? Do we need to say anything?
He's really quite good at football.
Yeah.
Like, he really is.
That's kind of it, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean, again, they'd have to stick at least another million on there before I started getting rid of him.
Of all the players in the game, according to Hub's tool here, he is the one predicted to score the most points over the first 4 game weeks, with about 31 points in 4 weeks is his prediction. Fulham, Palace, United, whatever, might be a tough enough fixture, but then Bournemouth. So Fulham and Bournemouth in the first 4, and then outside that in the first 7, you have Palace, Newcastle, Everton, and Wolves. That's just to go into the Liverpool sort of fixture, so everyone knows why everyone's tripling up. Like, everyone's tripling up. If you're not tripling it up, you should probably do it. There's no point in talking about him, is there? Who's your next pick in midfield? Well, who's your next most template?
Yeah, I'm going to go down in order of teams selected by, which means that next we've got Andreas Pereira, who is probably sitting on my bench. But yeah.
But again, like Nico, just a decent bench option.
Exactly. And I think, I quite like the idea of having the two of them and starting one of them each week. I think there's a lot potentially to be gained if you can spread that money into midfield, Yeah, there's a lot of fun, risky things you can do, I think, that still don't put you at a massive disadvantage.
Between them two alone, never mind whoever your other picks are, or your other bench option, but I mean, between them two, Andreas, you could feasibly play against Brentford in game week 3, Brighton maybe in game week 5. Outside that, you might want to play him, but then Nico Williams, if you hold on to him, I don't know if you want to target Everton or Newcastle. I think Newcastle are much stronger, but maybe Everton, maybe. But then 6 and 7, Bournemouth, Leeds. I know it's a while away and a lot can change, but Bournemouth and Leeds back to back. I think like Forest assets could be talk of the town come game week 4 or 5. But
I'm definitely not averse to having them in that rotation. I don't think you want players where they're just going to sit on your bench and you're never going to play them. Like, obviously, sometimes that's what you get. But I quite like that in both of those players, they do both have the potential to score points. You may not want to start them, but it's always satisfying when, if Andreas Pereira gets a goal in the first week, you're suddenly like, oh, hey, what's he doing on my bench?
He gets a goal against Wolves and then you're licking your lips looking at Brentford in game week 3. But who is the third most template in midfield?
I think my third most template is Martinelli.
Martinelli,
Yeah.
He's been in a few drafts. 6 million. I'll hit you with a question I hit everyone with. Are you worried about his minutes reference Smith Rowe, or you just like him? 6 million, he is the cheapest way into Arsenal, really.
Yeah, so do you know, I'm not too worried about people's minutes this season because counterintuitively, we've got the 5 subs thing now. And I think what that means is like you're much more likely to get minutes in any given week. It does mean that players like Martinelli, I'm expecting him to get fewer minutes than he might have otherwise done. But I think that's probably going to be true of most players. When you're able to change half of your team every game, there's going to be very few players who are playing 90 minutes every week. So I'm not too worried about substitution, about minutes and stuff. I just think he's insane value for money. When he does play at 6 million, you're getting a lot out of that.
I wonder, does that lean into the likes of City players where, you want players, like if everyone, all these attacking players, not all, obviously a lot of them will be 90-minute men, but if they're going to be getting either like a 60 or a 30-minute appearance, maybe quite often Mahrez for 30 minutes, or Foden for 30 minutes, you might take that. And he's more likely to get it now than he was last season. Like this season, you'd expect a lot of City assets to be getting those minutes up top. Maybe taking Haaland off for Alvarez, Mahrez getting minutes, Foden getting minutes, Grealish getting minutes. And maybe it's good to have that for your 7-8 million price tag over maybe going for the likes of a Maddison at Leicester if Leicester aren't having a great time.
Yeah.
Maybe just resting on the fact that this guy can do more damage in 30 than someone else can do in 90 is more feasible now.
For sure. And I think maybe I'm being logically inconsistent, but I think it appeals to me much more with those low to mid-range price players where I think, okay, I don't want to spend a ton of money on somebody who's going to be benched frequently, but I don't mind spending a little bit of money on someone who can potentially get a hat-trick in half an hour. And I think there's a lot of City players at that level, like Foden, I think, Grealish potentially. Well, they're not going to get all the minutes, but they're cheap enough that it maybe makes it worth it.
My prime example on one that I don't think have the balls to go with game week 1, but that I think absolutely makes sense. I don't think the price point is there in my team because I'm going like Kane, Jesus, and then 4.5. But if people are looking at, like, let's say forwards in that 7-8 million sort of bracket, Ivan Toney's, your Martial's, Johnson's, and Buemo Mitrovic's, I would be seriously tempted to go Julian Alvarez at 6.5 million at City, because you can be sure that he'll be getting 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there every week. And you can be damn sure in my head that I think I would, if I had to pick now, would I rather Alvarez 30 minutes playing in the front 3 at City, or would I prefer Nottingham Forest striker? I personally know what I would pick, so maybe it's more feasible, but the point is made.
Do you know, he's not in this draft, so I don't think I'm giving it away too much. But I've had Alvarez in my drafts more than most City players, I'd say. Like I've had City players in, City players out, but he's been in a lot of my drafts. I think he's potentially fantastic value for money. He's obviously not going to get all the minutes, which is slightly off-putting. But as you say, 6.5 million leading the line at City. Yeah, if he's only getting 20 minutes, half an hour every week, he can still do some serious damage.
Exactly. And that's 5 subs, 6.5 million. City forward, 30 minutes a week. Maybe you get 60 some weeks, 6.5 million. That could actually be the best value player this season we see. Potentially. It's a big call. I wouldn't bet anything on it, but I mean, that wouldn't surprise me if in 6 months we look back and he's a 7.1 million player and we're like, how on earth did they price him at 6.5?
We talk about Pep Roulette all the time, and having more subs, it means more rotation probable, but it ironically makes it more likely that your City players are going to get the minutes. So, why not?
Why not? So we'll see how that one pans out. Maybe people will laugh at us. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments. So your 4th midfielder.
Well, okay. My 4th most template is Rashford.
Oh, Rashford. So speaking of those 6.5 million players, there he is. You like Rashford? Did you have to pick between him, Martial, Sancho? I
think he's, again, potentially insane value for money. So something that I love about the midfields at the minute is you can do some really, there are some really proven players who have got the track record, might have had a bad season last year, but they've got it there in their history. They can do the job in the Premier League. They can score the points. It's known. And if they'd done that last season, they'd be priced a lot higher. And I think those kind of players, I just love. You can get people like Rashford where It's cost 6.5 million. You know, like that's just insanely cheap for someone with that track record. Let's have a look. Not off the top of my head, but
the recency bias is real on the Rashford price.
Yeah, you know, so last season, it wasn't great, but previously 11 goals, 11 assists, 17 goals, 8 assists, 10 goals, 7 assists. If you were getting that last season, you wouldn't be 6.5. You know, hopefully with. Shouldn't say hopefully because, obviously he's got his fans, but hopefully with Ronaldo not going to be featuring heavily this season, you know, I think potentially those Man United assets are all really underpriced.
The goals have to come from somewhere, so yeah, it'd be interesting. I think to be fair, after maybe 3-4 weeks, a lot of people are going out without one of their assets now. I think we'll all have one because one of these guys is going to bang. It'll be Martial, Rashford or Sancho. I don't know which one. Rashford, probably the best value, is the cheapest of them. So I like it as a pick. I think I'll have one of them in 3 or 4 weeks' time. But who is your fifth midfielder?
Okay, now we're going a bit rogue. But in the same line of people who have done it before and are potentially underpriced, I've got Sterling.
Sterling. Oh, baby.
He's coming in.
That might be a first. Maybe I think one of the early guests had him. But Raheem Sterling, who I picked him as my biggest flop of the season. I had to pick one for a predictions video, and I kind of looked at like the high value signings Chelsea have made in recent years. And I actually really like Sterling, and I think it's really good for his career. Unfortunately, I had to pick a premium guy because you can't be a flop if you're not expensive. So Raheem Sterling, you think he's going to go off?
I think he's going to go off. Yeah, I don't. The risk is he going to go off from the start? You know, if it takes him 10 weeks to hit his stride, then I've just wasted a spot. You know, but again, at 10 million, he's not cheap. You're potentially getting a player there who's, you know, he's matched Salah in the past.
Yeah,
3 million cheaper. You know, so I've had, now that I've filled in my midfield, I've had drafts with people like Sterling, even people like Bruno Fernandes, where, you know, potentially they have the ability to absolutely go off and absolutely be top premium level kind of price. And you can get a midfield that looks like sort of Salah, Sterling, Fernandes, you know, Rashford. You're like, well, 2 or 3 years ago, you'd have said each of those was worth, you know, a hell of a lot of money. And you can fit them all in now, you know, as long as you're willing to compromise elsewhere. So yeah, I guess this midfield is kind of, I don't really have anyone at that sort of 8 million mark. And I guess the most likely thing that I might end up doing around that would be Sterling becoming Mount. You know, I think Sterling is great value, but I think Mount also has the ability to equal him. There's obviously 2 million less. So it really just depends if I want to go and spend that money elsewhere. Sterling might be one that makes way, but I think he could be an amazing differential.
Yeah. I do. It's one of those where, like, you know, I make a video and I have to pick a flop, and it's a premium guy, and Sterling was the only one I could really find a hole with. And it's just, I was going to the kind of bias stuff
by the end of the season. You know?
Yeah, and I could be. And I honestly, he's the type of guy that if he does something against Everton, I mean Spurs, whatever, he could be in my team for Leeds game week 3. You just never know how this game goes, and you need to be agile. I hope it works out for you. Kind of. Probably not, actually. I keep saying this to people. I hope it works out for you. I genuinely don't, because I'm not going to have them. So, do you know what I mean? But Sterling and Mount, you know, there's 2 million of a difference in terms of predicted points on the tool. There's 3.4 points in it. Sterling coming out on top. So maybe the 2 million's worth taking there. That leaves us with 20 million for your forward. So this is going to be interesting. You mentioned you had 500,000 in the bank, meaning you spend 19.5.
Yes,
so
indeed.
I'm guessing can you feasibly? I don't think you can have a Kane or a Haaland.
I don't have a Kane or a Haaland. No.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so let's go for the lowest to the highest price. So who's your lowest price forward?
The lowest price forward is Greenwood.
Okay, Greenwood's in.
Yeah. Again, not for any particular reason, just someone's got to be at that 4.5 million price point. Might end up swapping him around for someone else. He's going to be third bench, whoever it is. So not too fussed.
Cool. So Greenwood's in, not too fussed. Might get some minutes. We'll see what happens. Who's the next most expensive player?
I've got Martial.
Oh, okay. Are you a United fan?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, I just think potentially they're just hugely undervalued. You know, it might go terribly. United might be as awful as they were last season, and it's suddenly not looking good for you. But potentially, you know, he's someone who, on his day, he has got that track record of absolutely smashing it with his pre-season form and stuff. I think happy to take a risk at this point.
No, I like it. And I mean, if those two go off, new manager bounce, Ten Hag coming in, Brighton and Brentford, nice start. Liverpool's going to be tough in game week 3. But as I say, if you're agile and can move about, or maybe you ride the storm for a week where you've got 5 players against each other with the 3 Liverpool lads and those 2 guys. But yeah, if United kick off, this is what I love about teams like this, and this is what I keep saying, Josh. It's that, and you're all previous winners, you know this better than me, you're not going to win without having picks like that. If you go pure template, maybe, okay, you could say at the start of the season you could do it and then make your points up later. But everyone who, the more template you are, you're safer in this kind of middle section. You're not going to be a winner, but you're not going to be a loser of the game. Whereas the more rogue stuff you put in like this, you could be terrible. Josh, you could be really struggling. You could be 2 millionth in the world after 3 weeks. But equally, you could feasibly be first or second. You could be in the top 10k after 2 weeks, And that's why I like the kind of the balls of picks like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where you don't want to be completely away from the template, because those template players are template for a reason. They are going to score points. Yeah. They are going to be good. You've got to get ahead of the curve in some way. Like if you really want to win it, you've got to have, so from the season I won it, the one for me was Jamie Vardy. So I'd got him in from the start because I thought it was a good pick. And the template switched to him after sort of 3 or 4 weeks. But by that point, he'd already scored about 4 goals. Getting ahead of it in that way, I think really helped with my season. Now, obviously, that's not something that you can plan for. You don't. You might pick Martial and then he doesn't score anything, and everyone says, "Well, it was a stupid pick." And I think that's a lot of the fun of the game, isn't it? You've got to. There's no point just reacting and just trying to copy everyone else. It's a lot more fun if you do your own thing.
Yeah, and then I suppose the wins feel better when it's yours.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be able to have a song and dance, yeah. So that leaves 8.5, which means you're spending 8 million on the forward. I'm gonna put my balls on the line again, and I'm gonna say you've picked Gabriel Jesus.
Yeah, me and everyone else.
He's picked by, I think he's the most selected player in the game at the minute, like 60-70%. Absolutely huge. Scored the hat trick there the other day. He's been on fire in pre-season. Is it 7 goals? I don't have it in front of me. He's just a no-brainer, isn't he? Great price point. No-brainer. Was there any debate around this one? Was he always in there? Has he came in after like a recent performance, or what are your thoughts on it?
No, the moment he moved to Arsenal, he was straight in my team, because he is a quality player. Pretty much everyone at Man City is an absolute quality player. The reason that not every Man City player is in everyone's team is just because Pep Roulette, they don't get the full minutes all the time. You never quite know what's going to happen. It's incredibly frustrating. Whereas, a player like that going to a top club, well, depending on your opinion of Arsenal, but let's say going to a top club at that price point, he's absolutely going to do numbers. And I guess the theme of all of my midfield and forwards is that I think these are all players who could potentially be priced 2 million more. Would I like Kane or Haaland? I'd love them, but you can't have everyone. And I think when you get those people, you have to compromise elsewhere, right? We've all got the same budget.
Yeah.
And I think the more players that you can pack in that are underpriced, the better value for money you're getting. That's kind of my logic in building this team.
It shows, the defense, the reason you've gone for pretty much the template defense, but it's template because of the value, as you say, in the defense. Salah, non-negotiable. But like Martinelli, Rashford, Sterling, you're sticking with that mantra where like they all in seasons gone by, or Martinelli, maybe not. I don't know what his previous price is, referenced to 6 million in the past, but he looks like he could outperform that price tag.
He's got amazing stats, Martinelli.
Amazing stats.
Yeah,
he can outperform 6 million easy. Rashford has been 3 million more last season. Sterling of seasons gone by, he's probably touched 12 million, 11.5 anyway. What's he at 10 now? Martial, probably been a 9 million player, I think, in my head. I can't really remember. And Gabriel Jesus is a Man City forward. So you are sticking that mantra. The value in this team and the potential for it to pop off. You can see it, you can't see it. It's just there is risk, but you have transfers. People talk about being aggressive this season with the early wild card viable. I like it. Have you thought about your wild card?
Yeah, not hard. So I don't like to plan it in for like a specific week beforehand, but I think I'll definitely play it a lot earlier than I usually would. I normally try and hang on as long as possible. But I think with the World Cup wild card, it's essentially a game of 4 halves this year. So, probably sometime around about week 8, 9, I'll be looking to switch over.
To pivot.
But I mean, if this team is doing terribly within the first 2 or 3 weeks, then maybe I'll go for the early wild card. Right. be too put off from it.
Maybe the Pedro Netos and the Harry Kanes and the Haalands are running riot and you've no choice. But what we're going to do, we're going to hit...
worst case scenario.
Yeah. Give you nightmares. So we're going to hit save plan. We're going to churn out a team rating and see how you get on. And you can let me know. We'll see how you got on. Put you on the leaderboard. Yeah. 95%, Josh. Now, you haven't seen the table, I think. How do you think you're going to come out? Do you think that's good? Is 95, would you have took that?
I'll take that. Yeah, I have no idea what the scale is. But I mean, that's a number that sounds high in my head. So I like that.
I'll tell you it's pretty good. I'll tell you exactly where shortly, but I'll ask you one question first. Would you take 64 points right now before the first game week?
No, I think I'd rather the gamble. Get all the high outside players on the pitch. Let's see.
Time will tell. And something really interesting to point out about this before we stick you on the table. Your team rating's 95, your game week rating's 84, which sort of suggests that your first game week won't be your best, but, you know, the subsequent game weeks that you can rotate around or play will make up the team, you know, because this is weighted, the team rating's weighted over 5 weeks. So 95% sticks you in 4th place. You just missed the podium, but 4th out of 14 isn't bad.
I'll take that.
You're just behind Jamie Piggott, last season's winner. You both got 95%, but he has higher predicted points, and that is our tiebreaker. He's actually predicted to score 5.5 more points than you in game week 1.
Can I spend that extra $500,000 upgrading Raya quick?
I'll tell you what we'll do. You've locked in, right?
No,
if you had have spent the extra $500,000 and you picked a 5 million, let's see what you could have won. So who would you go for? Like maybe a Ramsdale or a Pope you mentioned?
Probably a Pope.
A Pope would have pushed you to 96. And you would have came in 3rd. You would have stole it. You would have been on the podium. But look, we have you at 95. That'll teach you for being for saving money. That's literally punishment for keeping money in the bank, being prudent and planning ahead.
I should say to anyone who's watching, you know, I definitely won't be starting with $500,000 in the bank. I know that's a strategy people have, but it's it'll make it in the draft somewhere.
This is your team that's churned out. Thank you so much for joining us, Josh. If people want to find out their team rating and predicted points and all the rest, head over to the link in the description and you can find out. Post in the comments what your predicted points are, and don't forget there's a massive 50% off your hub membership with that link at the minute. See you in the next video.